And we back, and we back. Yeah. Hey, this ain't no intro.
This is the intro.
Yeah, this is the intro.
This is the intro.
It's the entree. Hit that intro with Kanye. I sound like Andre. Tryna turn my baby mama to my fiance. She like music, she from Houston, like Auntie Beyonce. Man, my daughter couldn't have a better mother if she ever.
Hey. Okay, so we're opening up with you then. Hey ladies, how we feeling today? What's going on? Are we
good? Welcome everyone to another episode.
Back. We're very happy. Welcome to all of our new listeners. Thank you for joining us. Really happy that you guys have been enjoying the show so much, and we're happy to have you. It's always awesome to get new followers. We are working on new things. We've been pretty lame with that. But the IG is new. That's doing much better. And so we are working on bringing more to the show and more to our listeners. We really appreciate you guys helping us get that strong, because that's something that we've been working at getting better at, because it's so important to the brand. This episode, you guys can probably tell from the title, but this is going to be a super interesting episode. I think we're going to hit a lot of different points.
Interesting to see where this goes.
It is. I mean, I guess that's kind of always the thing on this. But so the thing that made me think about this is, so I see it all over the TL a lot now, right? And that is a part of our culture too. We have to accept that social media has become, I want to say, like a third part of our culture, maybe, because there's so much Pacifica in so many different places. So before social media, it was mostly just family communication. I talked to my family in Australia, but we had little separate micro cultures. But now, because of social media, we have so much more exposure to, especially our generation, right? So we're learning what our cousins or what our friends live like in Australia, what they live like in the States, what they live like here and there, all the places we are, in Samoa and Tonga. And it's very different, and it's funny when things that aren't okay, one place interact with things another place via internet culture. And so something that I've been seeing people talk about a lot lately is subtweeting. And it's something that's only happened to me once. And I was like, and I was a little confused behind it, right? And you know what's crazy? This episode is actually going to get a little bit real, because we're going to talk about some of my background, things that form some of these beliefs for me. But a lot of people have just been talking about subtweeting, right? And so what is subtweeting? It's when when someone makes a statement online that you don't agree with, and instead of adding them or directly replying to the statement, you make a tweet about what they said on some bitch shit, because normally you don't even follow them, but because of the algorithms for how these things work, you see their tweets and they see yours, even though you don't follow each other. So you know when people subtweet you, because that happens all the time. It'd be a bunch of shit on my TL and I'm like, this person's blocked, or I don't even follow this person. Why is this shit because sometimes dumb shit just pops up on the feed.
So do you not really appreciate subtweet? You don't really...
So here's what it was. I didn't even understand subtweeting. And I knew what it was, but the concept, I had to figure out why. That's very much who I am. I want to understand the why of something so I know how to interact with it. And I didn't understand why it was necessary. I was like, why would anybody ever subtweet? I don't understand why you wouldn't just speak directly to the person in this. So
that's really, really interesting, because it's not even it's really interesting, because then if that's the definition of subtweet, I subtweet all the time.
Your mama. I've been calling you a keyboard warrior since we got married.
No, but it's not even So
what did you think subtweeting was?
Listen, it's not like I'm talking directly about that person. I'm talking about the topic that they've approached, that they're talking about.
That's a little bit different.
So I'm not personally attacking.
You're in that person. You're in that gray area. You're in that gray area if you're just addressing the topic.
But for me, it's
but a lot of people,
an Islander a Pacific Islander says something about abortion, like my views are pro-abortion, and theirs are like, oh, it's murder, it's blah blah blah. I'm not gonna waste my energy trying to
that's fair.
Add this person to be.
So you're in that gray area. As long as you're just talking about the topic and that's fair.
But
and
the
reason that's fair. The reason that's fair is because there are a lot of things and a lot of times in our universe in social media where a person will comment on something and then it will become a community-wide conversation, even if it's not directly with that individual. So that's fine. But subtweeting is...
I'm not talking about that direct individual. I'm talking about people like them.
No, but subtweeting is different. Subtweeting is like somebody's like, oh, I had an awesome night at the club with my girls, I love my life, and then somebody else sees it on the TL who doesn't follow them, and they're like, oh, loser bitches, always in the club, because they don't have anything at home, because they didn't put a ring on it, and nobody loves them, so glad I don't know what that life is like, like, tweets like that, and there's a lot of that bitch shit on the TL. And so...
that's quite lame. Yeah.
But and there's a lot of that to different degrees and different levels. And so I was like really I was like, why... why would this be a thing? That's what I was trying to understand, right? Because not even getting into how passive aggressive it is, and we know how I feel about passive aggression. But then I realized, I thought about me, right? And I was like, oh shit, I am a person that we both know sincerely and wholeheartedly advocates for violence, physical harm, right? And I think that applies to verbal situations, and we've had that conversation. I think that the things people say should matter, and there's a decent amount of people on our TL who give hidings, who will put their hands on somebody, right? And so when I thought about it from that perspective, and we'll get deeper into that, I was like, oh, fair. So if you want to talk shit, but you don't want to get your ass whipped, and you want to look cool on the internet, of course you would.
Are different. And
most people, but I don't know nothing about that life.
Yeah, people's personas online are different to how they are, and I feel most are not ready. Or like, remember the that Snapchat chick? She got put in jail because she went in...
I just talked about that on the last episode. I think we've covered that a couple times, but I'll gladly touch on it again. So this was our first year of marriage, and it was before Mahoikia was born. And you and I had a long, serious debate and conversation on this topic because you thought it was too extreme. But what happened was, there were two girls, or two young women, and one of the young women was always talking shit about the other one. But whenever she, but whenever she saw her in person, there was never any conversation. And the young woman who was being spoken about had told the other young woman repeatedly, keep my name out of your mouth. And the young woman got so fly with her mouth that she was talking about this woman's child. So she said, okay. So she found out where she was. She pulled up with her gun and she unloaded a clip into the young woman. Son. And the young woman died. But I didn't have an issue with any of that because my belief was that she created that situation. She had been warned. She was a habitual line stepper and she put herself in that situation. The only issue I had with it was that the young woman recorded the entire situation on Snapchat. The woman who shot her recorded the whole situation on Snapchat flexing and got her stupid ass sent to jail. And that upset me. Because you're a real one and you're going to rob the community of your realness by doing dumb shit and dry snitching and telling on yourself. And then she went to jail. But you disagreed because you were like, that's way...
That's like extreme. I feel
I'm extreme, so so why do you feel like that's extreme?
It's just no one needed to die in that situation. That's not really.
I'm sure for 90% of our listeners, you are correct, and you have the rational response. But go ahead,
I think for Pacific Islanders, right? Just culturally. there's some aspects of our culture that are upfront, and then there's a lot of other aspects that kind of we talk in not really riddles, but we're not as direct. No, and that I feel like that kind of leads
Jared Thymera
into
Thymera,
the passive aggressiveness
talking about
on Twitter.
Faraday's sword work opposed to
So I feel like for Islanders, it's just in that passive aggressiveness kind of translates to Twitter, to Facebook.
So for me, it's here's the difference. For me, it's both cultural and environment. It's where I grew up. It's the culture I come from as well. But we don't do, at least my generation, we don't do passive aggression, right? So the reason that we have among my people and where I come from, we have what's called evening promises, right? And we say people from the city make evening promises, and that's why they need contracts, because people speak words they don't intend to honor, and they say things that they don't intend. People say things that don't matter, that they don't keep, right? I'll tell you, for example, it was like, not even taking shots, but just the difference between how I view this. I remember when I first converted to being a Mormon back in the day, I was talking to one of my best friends, and she was like, oh, it's okay, you don't really gotta mean it. And I said, no, that's not how I work. I can't do that. If I say I'm committing to this faith, I have to commit to this faith. And she was like, oh, rough. Like, you know what I mean? But so for me, I hold that for everything. So I say everything I mean everything I say. And if I don't, then I don't say it. And there's absolutely no other way for me to live. I'm not capable of that. And I think that words should be that heavy for everyone. I think one of the most disgusting things in the world is people saying shit that they don't mean. And the license and the culture that it creates is why we have so much dishonesty and distrust and lack of character. People don't even understand or know what character is because they don't have any real values that they hold themselves to. And so that's where I think a lot of the culture of cowardice has come from. And I hate cowards almost more than anything in the world, and you know this. So if your words don't mean anything, and you can just change what you're saying to whoever you're saying it to, they don't hold any stock. You don't hold any stock.
Yeah, I think one thing that people often say is, "Oh, it's just Twitter."
Yeah, and I hate that culture as well.
Like,
oh, it's just jokes. It's just the internet.
Yeah, I don't fuck with Kevin Durant, but one thing he did tweet that I did that always sticks in my mind is it really just Twitter though?
It's not. It's not. And there's another person, I don't follow her, but one of my mutuals is really close friends with her, right? And she says something. She said, 2020, I've learned and I'm realizing all that shit that we say is not that serious. It is that serious. Yeah. Your best friend not supporting you or your friends not supporting you is that serious. People saying shit about you that they don't say when you're around, it's that serious. Like, all of that shit that we pretend is not that serious is that serious. And so that's part of the perception. People lie about the reality of things to make themselves... And I just addressed this tweet because I was like... I had this conversation online, and what I said was... I have a great sense of humor, and I love to laugh, but I'm not going to be the butt of anybody's jokes. Because if I'm the butt of your joke, you're not going to like the fucking punchline. Believe that. I don't do that weak ass humor that's tearing other people down or making fun of people and how they look. Because there's one or two reasons for that. Either you're a mean-spirited, hateful fucking coward, and you're using the pretense of a joke to tear another person down and pretend it's just humor when they're hurt. Or the secondary, which is non-toxic, but still I don't fuck with it, is you are insecure. you have low self-esteem. And so in order to make people more approachable and to make them easier to identify with, you try and bring them down a peg so that you can humanize them. Fuck you. Don't make me feel like less so that you can get your fucking weight up. Get your self-esteem up, you fucking loser. Like, I feel a way about it, but go ahead. So
that's a lot of Pacifica humor, and I feel like a lot of this generation is kind of consciously trying to move away from that. Kind of. But
we still got something like,
But the thing is, I just want to go back to my point that I was saying, like, a lot of our culture now is kind of a bit passive-aggressive. But in the same sense, like, pre-social media, pre-internet, our parents' generations had hands,
right? Like, but it was also passive aggressive too. Like, that's so and so sister, shit like that. But yes,
I could recall so many stories that my parents have of like just the fights that they've had, and but I guess with social media, that's not really a thing that needs to happen anymore.
I will even give this to your step pops, because I had respect. Because I respect for any man that knuckles up, because we had a disagreement and we was gonna rock up in the motherfucking parking lot, and your sister was like, "Oh nah, he wouldn't do anything." I said, "Listen, the way a man has to interact with his woman, regardless of her personality, and the way a man interacts with another man is completely different. And I'm sure he would acquit himself with honor." Okay, but I was nigga. Listen, I don't do bitch shit. Yeah. So the reason this episode. So we're gonna. I have a history with violence, right? And that's why I think this episode is so important, because we have a lot of things in our lives, in our community, that revolve around violence that we never speak on, and that we never touch, and we never approach. And we both have history with that from our parents, like you were just saying. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so for me, I often have a lot of distaste and dissatisfaction with the way I currently have to live life in terms of violence, right? And I'll give you a prime example why. But I understand the need for it. This example it's the reason and the need, right? So one of my favorite rappers right now is DaBaby. And I listen to some of his music, but not a ton of his music. But I rock with him as an individual more than I rock with his music, but I do enjoy his music. Another one of my favorite rappers, which you heard me talk about for years, Bobby Shmurda. Yeah? Yeah. Why do I love...
Free Bobby.
Free, my nigga coming home, dog. It's not even a game. Anyway, I'm sorry. So why do I love both of these men? Why do I identify with them? Why do they mean so much to me? Right? Because they are the antithesis of 6ix9ine. They are his polar opposite, right? He was a person who was all smoke and mirrors, who wasn't about, didn't believe, wasn't actually any of the things he spoke on. These is real niggas, okay? DaBaby just got arrested, right? And then he got held on a warrant. So why did he get arrested? Because a promoter tried to short him on his money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and so they beat the fuck out of the promoter and had him in the street naked and threw apple juice all over him, because babies drink apple juice. Jokes. Right? And that's why he got arrested. But then the warrant they held him on, they said they held him on gang activity, but the reason they held him is because when you do anything federal, shit is realer. So what happened was, they were at an airport. You can't do violence at an airport. They were at an airport, and someone at a kiosk said something disrespectful, and they beat the nigga up at the kiosk and then went and got on the plane. So they upgraded it to gang activity, right? So, but I love these. Why did Bobby Shmurda get so much jail time? He took more jail time than he was allotted so that his team would get less jail time, okay? Opposed to 6ix9ine, who just told off every fucking body. One of the first fights we ever had in our relationship was based off a hypothetical, because you had a friend whose partner was in jail and he told to get less time, and I said, I can't do it. And you were like, what the fuck? So you wouldn't tell to come home to me and my fucking baby?
I want the listeners to weigh in on this, seriously. I think this is something we should put on Twitter. Because listen, I'm partially understanding of your point of view in that sense, and part of me doesn't want you to snitch because that's just not your nature.
It's not what I come from. Home. It's not who I am.
But part of me feels disrespected,
and I get
that you wouldn't to come home.
Mama, listen, I love you with all my heart and soul, and I need you to know and understand that even though it's not the same thing, that if I was not capable of being here, I want to ask you a question. Do you know that if I was not capable of being here in any way, shape, or form, that all of my sisters and all of my family would step up in every single way possible? Is that something you know or not? I need a yes or no.
I know that.
Okay, right? So, that being said, this is
different.
I know it's different, but this is at the heart of this conversation. I'm not going to make this about machismo or toxic masculinity or anything like that, right? Because I'm telling you, even beyond being a man, I tell you, I'm a hell of a veer before I'm anything, right? My name is my name, my house, my family, my clan. That means everything to me, and all of that is built upon my word. My word is my word. I stand on my motherfucking word. It is to
yeah, I get it.
It would be such an utter betrayal to my family, to my house, to my clan, to my name, to my honor, to do something that would put me in a situation like that.
Partially, most of me would be like, no, it's.
And it took years for you to understand even what you understand now.
But just there's always gonna be that little bit of me that's like feels so, yeah. It's like an affront to me, like ugh. But you're leaving me with these kids, like really? No.
I did my very best to help you understand who I was when we got married and before we got married. But
the whole.
But this is a part of this conversation too,
yeah.
Right? So, but back to the baby, and so even though I love them, they are the prime example of why I have to force myself to live a life that I do, because they are the prime example of what happens when you continue to be that person. When you continue to put violence first in your life because you won't allow someone to disrespect you, or you're not going to let people talk to you a certain way. And this is not to say that I let those things happen, but I don't give in to my first instinct and respond with violence. I do the right.
I'm so glad you've come to this point.
I do the right thing and I walk away, or I ignore it, because what's in my heart and soul is to beat this motherfucker up. And when I engage in violence, I'm not trying. It's not a casual. I'm trying to hurt you. I'm trying to hurt you for the rest of your life. And on the wrong day, only one of us is going to walk away. And I don't give a fuck if it's me or it's you. But that's how I feel about it.
I'm very, very relieved that we've come to this point in the conversation, because that first half was just, I was like, wow. Not wow in the sense that this is like new revelation to me, but like, you really telling our listeners these like
but like we're being honest, we're being real about this.
Yes, that is true.
This is real shit that we're addressing. And so there are a lot of things that help me make that transition. And so the first thing that helped me make that transition was, now that you've lived there and you know and you understand, it was working in New York. It was working in the heart of the city, downtown, right? And I'm going to say this because another experience you have is riding the subway.
I do.
How often does everybody fight in New York over anything at the drop of a hat?
Yeah.
It's constant fish fights and beating people unconscious, right?
Well, not a constant, like, everywhere you see.
Not everywhere you see, but every day there is at least 10.
Yeah, it's definitely not a place for passive-aggressive people.
It's a part of the culture, because you'll get real knocked the fuck out.
For people who kind of, like, people who stare, it's not a place for you.
You can't make snarky responses. You can't stare at people. You can't talk under your breath. Because all of that will get you beat the fuck up.
If you're very sassy, but you don't have the hands to kind of really back up then no, this is definitely, New York is not a place for you.
Right? So
it's a place for you as a tourist, but even then.
Yeah, you should be careful.
Yeah.
My homegirl, so one of my best friends, Vika, in Australia, her sister took her best friend with her to New York, and her best friend was Palangi, and she told her best friend, stop staring at people, because white Australians stare at people all the time, and her best friend kept staring at people, and she got beat the fuck up by a New Yorker, because she wouldn't stop staring at them.
Yep.
Because she was Palangi, and she had never seen that many black people before, and she was just staring at them, and Vika's sister told her, don't do that, and they beat her the fuck up on vacation.
I remember I told the story, I'm not sure when, maybe last year, how I stood, like, it's just a lot of common sense stuff that you need to do in New York. Like, one, don't stand right in front of the freaking elevator
or the subway doors as they're opening.
They're, like, you need to let people out first. Like, it's just stuff that
it flies differently in New York. So the reason that I had to change the first is because when you ride the subway, even little old ladies throw elbows. You know what I mean? And the realization I had was I couldn't fight everybody. You know what I mean? Because I was gonna end up in jail or die on the subway. I literally couldn't fight every single person. Like, there's like fucking hundreds of millions of people in New York, right? So that was the first thing that got me. And then I was still pretty young when I left America and started living in other countries all over the world. And here's the thing, I'm not afraid of jail. I'm not afraid to kill. I'm not afraid to die, right? But we watched something that was very embarrassing for me that I didn't enjoy when we were in the States, which is deportees of Tonga. And because I hate to have my culture, our culture, negatively highlighted. And so to see all of these Tongan men who have been deported back to home, and it hurts me that they never wanted to go there for any other reason and they never wanted to go back, but to see all of them who were deported because of their history and their relationship with violence and doing violent shit, you had one dude who was in America and he started in jail at 14 because some kids were making fun of him at school and bullying him, so he went to school the next day with a gun and killed the kid. And that started his lifelong, and then him and his older brother spent their entire lives in prison until they got old enough to be deported. And his older brother went to Mexico rather than go back home to Tonga because he said he will never. And so the land became his, and he had to kick his uncle off because he said his older brother will never. You know how fucked up Mexico is? You know how much you gotta hate your home and what you come from to want to go to Mexico before you go back to your island? And that shit was so. And so I understand.
Well, it's a bit rough too, especially like going home, like being deported, going home, and you're coming with nothing. Right, and there's a lot of shame and a lot of kind of
because there's
family shame in that. It's
and they look at prisoners like shit. On top of all the things, the amenities that you had in
America,
you
went to the land of milk and honey, and you come back with nothing. Like you get kicked out. Like shame. So, like it's
So I understood. Going to jail in another country is not for me, and I understood what my life would be like if I let violence follow me in foreign countries. You know what I mean? And so it was those first two things, and then the third one was we had babies. We had babies. Just because I'm willing to kill somebody doesn't mean that I don't understand the ramifications and impacts that this will have on our children.
And that was one of the stories of the deportees of Tonga. Some of them have had families.
They have kids and families that they can't see anymore.
It's really rough. And I feel like this is definitely an important conversation for Pacifica. Not even just Pacifica men, Pacifica women as well. Just the level of violence that we're kind of accustomed to and have kind of normalized. And this is
domestic
violence, like
and this is why from the very beginning, before even Mohuakia was born, I've always interacted with you a certain way, because our first year of marriage was our hardest, and it was also my angriest. And I used to be fucking heated and seething inside and just wanting to scream and break shit. And I remember you said to me one time, if that's what you feel and that's what you need to do, why don't you? And I said, because I will never, ever normalize that in our home and make that our environment and make you feel unsafe in our home. And so it took me a long time to figure out how to deal with it. It was a lot of cigarettes for a while, you know what I mean, and some wine bottles, and just figuring out other ways to let go of, because my entire life, my experience has been just releasing I don't have experience holding my shit in. I remember, so it
really breaks my heart to think of all the Pacifica men and women in jail right now that are in there because they never learned how to kind of deal with their anger, or and it's not even it's like a lot of systematic stuff that kind of has compounded so much that a boiling point.
I knew I had to change because I had a sincere commitment and desire to never make that your life, and never make that your reality, and never make that their life, and never make that their reality. But it was hard. That was very toxic for me for a long time, because I had to hold in and sit on a lot of things and a lot of disrespect that I would never, ever tolerate. You know what I mean? At other times or in other aspects. And even for me, having to hold my tongue is wild toxic, because I'm an adult. I'm a grown man, and if we can't have a conversation, then you shouldn't be in my life. So who the fuck is there in existence that I should have to hold my tongue for? I pay my motherfucking bills. I feed my family. You know what I mean? I take care of who the fuck do I have to not speak how I feel about you? Listen, it's like the young girls say on Twitter, if you're not feeding me, fucking me, or financing me, we ain't got shit to talk about.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, especially not you being spoken down to. But
I think
so it was a lot of shit I had to.
It's really rough, because I think one thing that Pacifica people, we're kind of getting to that stage now with this generation where we're kind of realizing it, but your childhood years, your formative years, really do impact how you behave later on in life. Yeah. And people who have kind of been exposed to the family violence, I suppose, or getting beat. Because there's a lot of people on social media right now that are like, oh, I got beat all the time as discipline, and I turned out fine. But there's a lot of people who didn't turn out fine. But even beyond that too, taking it back to the sexual, something I'm very proud of is all the women who have exposed the families in our community that have full of these sexual predators and have protected and hidden and not spoken on them. And these young women are on our tail like, fuck you, because your brother raped me, and your brother raped me and molested me, and your family never said or did shit about it. So there's a lot of exposing going on now, but that's another form of violence. It is.
You know what I mean? And all of these things impact us. And again, going back to Deportees of Tonga, that's what he said. He said his dad used to beat the shit out of them. And
he saw his dad as God.
Right. And he said, you can't beat God. At least I couldn't. So I had to beat up everybody else.
Exactly. That's
But everything about my nature.
But that's something he realized.
Yeah.
Post
prison and all of the shit that he had been through.
When he's now in a stage to kind of contemplate his life.
That everything stemmed from his relationship with his father.
But when you're in it,
yeah.
So.
But, everything about my nature is direct and upfront, because I view passive, snarky, insidious jabs, I view all of those things as cowardice. And so I would never do something that I believe to be weak or be something a coward would do. And so I'm not going to wait until you're not around and then say something. If we have an issue or a problem, I'm going to direct you to clear up the issue or we don't need to be in each other's lives. If I can't have a direct conversation with you so that we can resolve issues, then we don't need to be around each other. I'm not going to back down from people doing certain things. Like, that shit is weak to me. All that shit is weak, and I'm not about any of that. There's no one I should have to shrink or make myself small for. And so I didn't even understand, at the origin of this conversation, a lot of the mindset around subtweeting. But the reality is, a lot of people are afraid. And the internet, I have this conversation about bullying all the time, right? Bullying wasn't a real, so even bullying wasn't a real thing in my generation. I say that, but I guess it wasn't that bullying. Like it was. That bullying wasn't it's not that bullying wasn't a real thing.
It's that everyone knew how to knuckle up.
Right. It wasn't words. It wasn't. I mean,
listen,
I guess it was words too.
I guess this is just the way I see it. Is, you know, my parents' generation, they say kind of bullying wasn't a thing, but it's not that bullying wasn't a thing. It's that they were accustomed to a certain level of, like, all of them kind of, it's called like tough skin kind of thing, whatever. But we now,
okay,
we don't normalize that kind of stuff. It's like, listen, why should I have to put up with that?
If you didn't have hands, you got beat the fuck up. You know what I mean? And if people had jokes, then you had to have jokes back. But here's the difference, right? The internet has turned cowards into lions and wolves in their own mind. And so you got a lot of these weak people and these punk bitches who would never say these things in person that attack people online to feel better about themselves, right? And so now you got all of these young people committing suicide because people tearing them down and tearing their lives apart and all of this, and you know what I mean? It was horrible. You had people killing themselves back in the day because someone would take a sexual or naked picture of them and pass it around the school. But how much worse is it when people do that shit online now, and people all over the world are exposed to your news? That's why I like in America that they've made it against the law to expose someone's news, and you can spill real time in jail from it, because that shit is a major act. I think they take it super seriously. I think you can get 5 to 10 years in jail for exposing someone's news, but it's the anonymity
that makes people feel powerful.
It makes them feel strong. And when you feel weak in every other aspect of your life, you want to feel strong wherever you can. And this is why I don't agree with a lot of people having children, because there are people that abuse and beat the shit out of and take it out on their kids, because the only place they feel strong is the people they have control over, their children. Their parents talk down to them and treat them like shit. Their boss talks down to them and treats them like shit. They're afraid to confront people in public. So I'm gonna come in there and take it out on this kid. Like, you know, you gotta listen to me. Like, or pets. People do it in a lot of different situations, but online is just where we see it the most visibly right now. So, as much as I think, as much as I'm intelligent, the sad reality is my ignorant ass, I am who I am everywhere. I dial it back on the internet because we have a brand. So for me, it's the reverse, right? It's the Corey Gunn statement that I love. He talking about today's culture. He said, everybody's a wolf until you pull a wool up. So it used to be wolves in sheep's clothing. Now it's sheep in wolf clothing, you know, and that's the majority of our online culture. Whereas me, I'm online trying to, no, positivity, growth. Really, I'll beat you the fuck up. But it's not, and it's not even that's pretending. Those are things that matter, and those are things that I want to normalize because I want to take the violence away. But just because I understand the need to remove violence from our community and the need for me to live a life that doesn't directly feed into violence doesn't mean I fuck with disrespect. That's something Charlemagne the God said once that I fuck with very heavy, because he was because there was a rapper talking shit about other rappers, or talking shit not about rappers, about some gangsters, and they came and beat him up and took his chain, and he was in the street screaming, I ain't do nothing, I ain't say nothing, bro, I ain't say nothing. And the thing that Charlemagne said at the time that resonated with me forever, he said, listen, I know you guys are getting upset with me for celebrating the situation. He said, but I want you to understand, it's not about violence, it's about respect. Same thing as that young woman. He put himself in this situation and didn't believe that there would be consequences and repercussions to it. And so it's my same shit.
But you can, in that same, using that same thing, put that same thing, like, it's not about violence, it's about the respect. That's how parents who beat their kids feel. It's not that I beat you. It's because you didn't respect me enough to stop this certain behavior that you were exhibiting.
That's fair. That's fair. But I'm not. Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair, and I can understand how that mindset can be adopted. But that's true of anything. You can take anything and adopt it to a negative mindset.
Well,
so yeah, I mean, you being a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for? You equivocating like a motherfucker right now. You're equivocating.
It's oranges in his pants.
So you can say that about anything, and I'm not doing it from that aspect. I'm saying if you were actively attacking people and tearing people down online and you get beat the fuck up, you had that coming.
Yeah. But yes, you're right. It is a bit orange and apple.
Yeah. You were equivocating super hard.
Yeah. But I did want to touch on more about Pacifica and...
Well, we know domestic violence is a reality.
But have
you
we
want to talk
touched
about
on
that? We talked about it a little bit because I remember one of the things that blew my mind and really messed me up was I had a lot of adult male students. And you know how my students felt about me. You know how I felt about them. And I used to speak to them very passionately about improving themselves and improving their lives and what they were building towards and what they were working towards. And I remember one of my students, when I got to one of the most challenging groups I ever had was like these 5 older Samoan men. And we used to bump heads so hard in the beginning. But then we grew to love each other and like we had like a really super tight bond, and they were all like, they cried when I left and shit. And they were like, where's her family live? No. No, but I remember one of them, one of the things that messed me up is when he came to class one day and it was just me and him. And he told me, you made me stop hitting my wife. And I was like, oh shit. This got heavy really quick. That got dark. No, but I made him want to stop beating his wife and kids with the things that we talked about and the things that I made him feel about himself and the things that I made him think about. Because I made him think about why he did that and why he felt he needed to do it. And the only reason I was capable of doing that is because as a teacher, I was in a position as someone that they respected.
Yeah.
Because I'll say this about our culture. In Pacifica, we have a lot of respect for authority. Yeah. That's one good thing that comes out of the caste system. So you have to like respect people, chiefs, and so as a teacher, even though all of these men were my senior in age, as their teacher, they had respect for me as someone who had knowledge, especially with the things that I started to teach them that were outside of our curriculum. And so they were open and receptive to the things that I had to say, and I was able to make them look at and reflect on and teach them more positive things. But that's the thing that prevents that, and that's why I've largely given up on our parents' generation, because they know so much and they've been around so long that they can't learn anything new, and nobody can tell them any fucking thing because they know everything. So how can you teach them how can you teach them that the things that they're doing are toxic and fucked up and wrong if they're not willing to learn, if they don't respect you enough to listen because you're not a peer or an authority figure to them, so they don't have to acknowledge you hurt me when you do this to me. And they can respond with you're being sensitive or you're being weak and you need a thicker skin. They don't actually have to learn. And so the amount of effort that it would take to collectively teach them, I just don't have that kind of energy. So there's a lot of our elders I just don't fuck with, because you're not going to bring that toxic shit around here. You're not going to be kissing my daughters in the mouth. You know, I'm like, you got very quiet. But so, but for them, that's the, I thank my higher power that I was lucky enough to be in a position where I could share quality and better and health and enlightenment with them, and they were open to receiving it, and that it improved the lives of their families. And then I had one of my other guys who used to get beat by his wife, but that was rough, so I couldn't do anything about that one because I didn't know her.
Yeah.
She used to be whipping his ass. I'm like, ooh, felt bad.
Yeah.
And that felt doubly bad. Let me stop now. I'm gonna leave out the next part. But anyway.
But yeah, I think this is a good place to end it.
Yeah, we hit that 40-minute mark sometimes when we go for 30. But yeah, I think this was a good episode.
I do too. I think it's an important topic in our community. Just violence in general being normalized.
Yeah,
and ways we can.
The reasons that we have to work on it.
Yeah, I feel like there definitely is. I know that there are some kind of community groups out there that kind of identify and work with Pacifica and Māori men on their anger and things like that, but I do feel like we need more.
We need more anger management. We need more open discussions about it. We need more therapy
By Pacifica people, because
right, not
where
us,
it's coming from,
not us going to Palangi
Yeah.
to talk about these things. Us having the privilege of going to talk to people who look like us
and
about
who
these
know
issues
about these our name
from our perspective. Yeah.
But
we love you, family.
We hope,
we do. And we will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
But